The sky above Seoul was a perfect, clear blue. Minji, her uniform jacket unbuttoned and a cold cup of coffee forgotten at her station, was watching the routine dance of orbital traffic on her monitor. A supply shuttle here, a communications satellite there. It was quiet. Too quiet for the afternoon shift at the Korea Aerospace Defense Division. Then, the edges of her screen flickered. A bloom of unknown energy signatures appeared at the solar system's fringe near Neptune's orbit. They were not on any schedule. They were not identified. They were just there, dozens, then hundreds. The numbers on her display scrolled upward, a relentless, silent tide. Senior Engineer Dae-hyun, Minji called out, her voice calm but firm. "You need to see this." Dae-hyun, a man with kind eyes and gray at his temples, was at her side in 3 strides. He leaned in, his easy smile vanishing. What in the world? The count passed 1,000, then 5,000. The signatures were now swarming inward, past the gas giants, moving at speeds that defied conventional physics. They were not approaching. They were simply appearing, as if space itself was folding to disgorge them. By the time they crossed the asteroid belt, the main tactical screen in the command center was a solid wall of hostile red icons. The final number stabilized, a cold, impossible integer, 12,000. They took position in a perfect, terrifying sphere around the pale blue dot of Earth. The orbital traffic vanished, either retreating or being silently swallowed by the advancing wall of ships. Each vessel was a jagged silhouette, like a twisted shard of black glass, larger than any human-made station. The global alert screamed to life a second later. Every screen in the KADD command center, every public monitor in Seoul, every phone and tablet on the planet, went dark for a single, heart-stopping moment. Then the alien face appeared. It was not monstrous. That was the worst part. It was vaguely humanoid, with large, dark eyes and gray, smooth skin. It spoke, and the voice was a synthetic, toneless echo that resonated from every speaker simultaneously. People of Earth, we are the Cathar Collective. Your world now belongs to us. Your technology is primitive. Your defenses are meaningless. Submit to peaceful assimilation. Your cultures will be studied. Your species will be preserved within our great archive. Resist, and you will be erased. You have 6 of your planetary rotations to decide. The signal will repeat. The image cut. The message began again, translated into Korean, then Mandarin, then English, then 1,000 other tongues. People of Earth, we are the Cathar Collective. The command center, a place normally buzzing with low conversation and the hum of machines, was dead silent. The only sound was the repeating, gentle, terrifying ultimatum. Minji felt a cold sweat on her back. Her hands were steady on her console, a fact that surprised her. She looked at the tactical display. 12,000 warships. Earth's combined fleet, all the old defense platforms and experimental fighters, numbered less than 300. It wasn't a war. It was an execution waiting to happen. Dae-hyun let out a long, slow breath. 12,000, he muttered, not to her, but to himself. He zoomed a scanner on the nearest vessel. Look at the energy profile, Minji. She pulled the data up. The ship radiated a tremendous power signature, enough to vaporize a moon. But as she watched the readings, a tiny frown appeared on her face. The signature was flat. It was constant. No variance, no pulse, no engine flare. It was like reading a perfect, unwavering straight line. It's like a picture, she whispered. Or a recording, Dae-hyun said, his voice low. No ship that size, with that much power, has a signature this clean. It's not how physics works. There's always noise. Always a heartbeat. Could it be a stealth technology? Masking their real output? Maybe, Dae-hyun conceded, but he didn't sound convinced. He rubbed his chin. Or maybe they're so advanced, their systems are just that perfect. From the communications pit, a young man with focused eyes and a headset waved a hand. It was Jin. He was the best signal analyst they had, a man who heard patterns in static. Minji and Daehyun moved over to his station. The main broadcast is on a loop, Jin said, his fingers flying across his own console. But there's a carrier wave underneath it. Very faint. It's not part of their message. It's different. He isolated it and played a snippet through his headphones, then patched it to a small speaker. A low rhythmic pulsing filled the air. Thump, thump, thump. Thump, thump, thump. It was mechanical, insistent, but it didn't match the cadence of the Cathar speech. It repeats every 4.7 seconds. Exactly, Jin said. No deviation. The main message has emotional inflection, even if it's synthesized. This is just a machine. A heartbeat for the projection system? Minji wondered aloud outside the sealed command center. They could hear the first sounds of panic shouts, running feet, the distant wail of sirens beginning to rise across Seoul. The world was waking up to a cage it hadn't seen being built. Daehyun stared at the pulsing signal on Jin's screen, then back at the terrifying wall of red icons on the main display. 12,000 warships. A perfect sphere. A flawless repeating threat. Something is wrong with this picture, Daehyun said finally, his eyes hard. They give us 6 days? Why? With that fleet, they could demand surrender in 6 minutes. Why the show? Why the deadline? He looked at Minji, then at Jin. They want us to panic. To look at the number and give up. They don't want us to look closely. Minji followed his gaze to the tactical screen. The alien formation was magnificent, awful, and absolute. But in its very perfection, she now felt the first, fragile spark of something other than dread. It was a question. What if, she said softly, it's not a show of force? Daehyun finished the thought, his voice a gravelly whisper. What if it's the only force they have? The alien message continued to play on a loop in the background, a soothing, deadly mantra. But in the quiet corner of the KADD command center, 3 people had stopped listening to the words. They had started listening to the silence between them. And in that silence, they began to plan. The world fell apart in a predictable way. Within hours of the Cathar ultimatum, stock markets crashed. Governments went into emergency sessions, their debates broadcasting fragments of panicked rhetoric. Some major cities saw riots. Others were eerily quiet, their populations staring at the sky, waiting for the first laser to flash down. The United Earth Defense Council was formed, a messy gathering of terrified leaders, and their first act was to begin drafting the instrument of submission. The dominant argument was simple. You cannot fight 12,000 of anything. In Seoul, the KADD command center became an island of focused calm. Officially, they were following orders to monitor the alien fleet. Unofficially, Minji, Daehyun, and Jin were conducting their own war. They are giving us 6 days because they need 6 days? Daehyun said, pacing in the small, secure lab they had commandeered. It was 2 floors below the main command center, lined with old servers that hummed with a warm, constant noise. They need us to believe it so completely that we never think to test it. Test a wall of warships? Minji asked, her eyes on the data stream from a deep space telescope array. How? A nuclear missile would just be swatted away. It would prove their point. We don't test with a weapon, Daehyun said, stopping his pacing. We test with light. He called in a favor. An hour later, Dr. Sumi arrived. She was an astrophysicist from the university, a woman known for her brilliant papers and her complete lack of patience for bureaucracy. Her hair was tied back sharply, and she looked at the 3 military personnel in the cramped lab as if they were a particularly annoying set of data points. "You pulled me from a very important panic," she said dryly. "I was calculating how much canned food I could fit in my basement." Dae-Hyan got straight to the point. He explained their suspicion. The perfect energy signatures. Jin's repeating carrier wave. The flawless theatrical formation. Datsumi listened, her skepticism clear on her face. "You think the most advanced threat in human history is a magic lantern show? Based on a feeling about engine noise?" "Not a feeling," Minji said, turning her monitor. "Data. Look at the formation. It's a perfect shifting sphere. Every ship moves to correct its position relative to Earth and its neighbors. The movements are instant. No acceleration." Sumi leaned in, her professional interest now piqued. She took over the console, her fingers a blur. She pulled up records from telescopes in Chile and Australia, tracking the apparent movement of several hundred Cathar ships over the last 12 hours. She ran calculations, her frown deepening. "Light speed," she muttered. "What?" Jin asked. "The information," Sumi said, her voice losing its edge, becoming clinical. "If these were real ships, their movements would be coordinated, yes. But the signal to coordinate would take time to travel between them. A ship on the far side of Earth, relative to a command ship, would receive an order with a delay. Its movement would be minutely out of sync. It would be a messy, living formation." She pointed at her screen. "This is not messy. Every ship moves in perfect, instantaneous harmony. It is a single image projected onto a spherical field. It's updating based on one point of origin. The mothership," Dae-Hyan breathed. "A projector ship," Sumi corrected. "Hidden somewhere in that cloud of fiction. It's rendering this nightmare painting. And it's good. Very good. The energy signatures are part of the image. It's feeding us data saying, 'I am powerful,' directly into our sensors." The room was silent, save for the hum of the servers. The scale of the deception was staggering. "Proof," Minji said finally. "We have a theory. We need proof we can show the council." "The light lag," Sumi said, a fierce smile touching her lips. It was the smile of a scientist who had found a flaw in the universe. "If it's a projection from a single source, the light from different parts of the fleet will have traveled different distances to reach us. But the image is cohesive, meaning the projection is being calculated for an observer at the center of the sphere, Earth. If we observe from a point not at the center, the image should warp," Dae-Hyan finished. "Like looking at a hologram from the side." "Exactly. We need an eye outside the cage." Jin slumped in his chair. "All our deep space probes are on the wrong side of that wall. Or dead." The Cathar's first act was to silence anything that could look back at them. Minji's mind raced. There had to be something. An old satellite, forgotten in a long orbit. She ran through the inventory in her head. Communication satellites, weather satellites, spy satellites. All in near-Earth orbit. Then she remembered. "The Baekdu," she said. Dae-Hyan blinked. "The Baekdu?" "Minji, that probe was decommissioned a decade ago. It's a museum piece. It was on a gravitational slingshot trajectory to study the Oort cloud," she said, pulling up the old mission logs. "Its primary mission failed. Its thrusters died. It was left in a long, stable heliocentric orbit." Her heart sank as she tracked its last known position. It was on the far side of the sun. Useless Datsumi, however, was looking at the orbital mechanics. Its orbit. It's a long ellipse. It swings out past Mars. But look at its position relative to the projected fleet sphere. She overlaid the diagrams. In approximately 18 hours, a small segment of the Cathar formation, as seen from Earth, will also be in the line of sight from the Baekdu's position. It will be looking at the fleet from a 70-degree angle. Can we wake it up? Jin asked. Maybe, Dae-Hyan said, a new energy in his voice. Its solar panels should still work. Its basic systems might have survived. It was built to last. But we can't give it complex instructions. Its computer is ancient. We don't need complex, Minji said, the plan forming. We just need its eyes open. And we need it to send a simple, loud signal back home. A signal on the frequency Jin found. Use their own carrier wave against them, Jin said, understanding. If it's the heartbeat of the projector, pinging it might cause a flicker, a distortion. And if the Baekdu sees that distortion from its angle, while we see nothing from ours, we have our proof, Dae-Hyan said. A ghost revealing a ghost. The work began in a frantic, secret rush. Jin worked on crafting the pulse signal, a perfect copy of the 4.7-second thump. Dae-Hyan and a reluctant engineering team, sworn to secrecy, worked to re-establish contact with a probe that hadn't spoken in 10 years. Minji coordinated, her mind battling the exhausting global fear. On every screen, news channels showed politicians arguing for surrender. The draft of the instrument was nearly complete. They were running out of time. Su-Mi remained at her console, running and rerunning the calculations. The light lag, the angles, the probability of success. It was a slim chance, but it was the only one they had. As night fell over a terrified soul, Minji looked out the lab's small, reinforced window. She could not see the alien ships, but she felt their presence like a weight on her chest. 12,000 warships. A number designed to crush Hope. But now she didn't see warships. She saw pixels. And somewhere in the dark, a lonely, forgotten probe named Baekdu was drifting toward a place where it could see the truth. They just had to wake it up. The lab smelled of old electronics and cold coffee. For 18 hours, they had lived in a bubble of tension. On the main floor above them, the mood was one of grim acceptance. The United Earth Defense Council was in final deliberations. The instrument of submission was a completed document, waiting only for the formal vote at the end of the 6-day period of vote that now seemed foregone conclusion. Surrender was not a matter of if, but when. Downstairs, it was different. Jin had the pulse signal ready, a clean, digital copy of the alien carrier wave. Su-Mi had plotted the exact window. A 23-minute period where the Baekdu probe's line of sight would intersect. A dense cluster of the Cathar projection. Dae-Hyan and his engineers had performed a miracle. After 1,000 failed attempts, a weak, chattering signal had come back from the deep space probe. Its main computer was dead, but a secondary system, a simple beacon meant to broadcast its location, was still alive. They could not steer it. They could not make it take pictures. But they could make it transmit. They needed a pilot. Tae-Won is here, Dae-Hyan said, leading an older man into the lab. Tae-Won had retired from the space agency 5 years prior. His hands were stained with gardening soil, and he wore a look of profound confusion that quickly sharpened into focus as Dae-Hyan explained the situation. You want me to fly a brick, Tae-Won stated. His voice gravelly. It is a brick, Minji confirmed. But its beacon transmitter is pointed in the right direction. We can't move the brick, but we can use the brick's voice. We need you to sequence the pulse signal into its transmission cycle. It has to be perfect, and it has to be at the exact moment Su-Mi gives the mark. Tae-Won looked at the schematics, at the ancient code, and then at the faces of the people in the room. He saw the fear, but underneath it, a furious, desperate hope. He nodded once. Show me the controls. The final hour was a silent vigil. Minji watched the global news feed on a side screen. A talking head discussed the painful but necessary path to survival. She muted it. The only sound was the hum of the servers, and Tae-Won's soft keystrokes as he linked into the Baekdu's archaic system. "Contact window in 10 minutes," Sumi announced, her eyes glued to the celestial clock on her screen. "The target cluster is designated Kappa 7. From Earth's view, it's a group of about 20 capital ships. From Baekdu's view?" Dae-Hyun asked. "It will see the edges of them," Sumi said. "If they are projections, the edges are where the distortion will be most visible. Our telescopes here are focused and ready. Pulse sequence is loaded and ready for remote trigger," Tae-Won said, leaning back. His hands, which had been steady as stone while working, now trembled slightly. He clasped them together. No one spoke. Minji felt her heartbeat in her throat. They were about to poke a bear that had 12,000 teeth, and they were using a stick from 10 years ago. "Window open," Sumi said, her voice clipped. "Baekdu has line of sight on Kappa 7. Transmit." Tae-Won pressed the key. In the lab, nothing happened. They stared at the data feed from their own orbital telescopes, aimed at the same cluster. The 20 Cathar ships hung in the blackness. "Menacing and solid. 5 seconds, Jin whispered, counting down the pulse travel time. Then it happened. On the screen, the cluster of ships didn't explode or vanish. They shimmered. For less than a second, the crisp, dark outlines blurred, as if seen through hot air. The terrifying warships became transparent, ghostly silhouettes, and through them, for a single, breathtaking moment, the steady pinpricks of real, undisturbed stars could be seen. And then it was over. The image snapped back to perfect, terrifying clarity. "Yes," Sumi hissed, her fist hitting the table. "Did we get it?" Dae-Hyun demanded, turning to the data feed. "The Baekdu's beacon? Did it see?" Jin was frantically parsing the incoming signal from the probe. It was a simple, automated status pulse, but it contained a basic light meter reading. He graphed the data. A smooth line represented the expected starlight, and right in the middle of it, a massive corresponding spike. "It saw the stars," Jin said, his voice full of wonder. "Its light sensor spiked when our pulse hit. It saw right through them? They're not there." The proof was in their hands. A flicker from Earth's view. A matching light spike from an angle 70 degrees off-center. The Cathar Armada was a phantom. The celebration was instantaneous and quiet. A choked laugh from Tae-Won. A fierce grin from Sumi. Dae-Hyun put a hand on Minji's shoulder. His relief palpable. It lasted 8 seconds. Every screen in the lab flashed a blinding, violent purple. A new alien face appeared, different from the first. This one was twisted with what could only be rage. The smooth, diplomatic tone was gone, replaced by a screeching, digitized snarl. "A sting! A sting from a gnat! You dare probe our glory?" The face swiveled, as if looking right at them through the camera. "The Baekdu probe. Your insolence has cost you your grace period." On the tactical screen, a single thin beam of brilliant white energy lanced out from the heart of the projected fleet. It crossed millions of kilometers in an instant. The signal from the Baekdu probe vanished from Jin's console. Not a fade. A full, utter, and silent termination. The alien visage loomed. "The deadline is now. You have one of your planetary rotations. Submit, or we will burn a city from orbit to demonstrate our resolve. Let this be the only demonstration you require." The broadcast cut. The original looping message did not return. The silence it left behind was heavier, more threatening. The joy in the lab had frozen and shattered. Tae-Won looked ill. Sumi was staring at the last point of the Baekdu signal, her face pale. They had proven the fleet was an illusion. But in doing so, they had proven the Cathar were real. They were watching closely, And they were vicious. They're panicking, Minji said, her own voice surprising her with its steadiness. They just shortened our time from 6 days to 1 and threatened genocide. Dae Hyun replied, rubbing his temples. Exactly, Minji insisted. A truly powerful force doesn't panic. They don't change the rules because a 10-year-old probe poked them. They swat the probe and continue the countdown. They revealed their hand. The mothership is real. The weapon that hit the Baekdu is real. But the 12,000 warships are a screen, a bluff they are desperate to protect. They know we know, Jin said softly. And now they will make an example to scare us back into line. They will destroy a city in 24 hours, unless we surrender completely. The weight of it settled on them. They had the truth, but the truth had made the enemy dangerous. They had to get their proof to the Global Council, to stop the surrender, and to convince Earth to fight a ghost while a very real gun was pointed at its head. Minji looked at the data, the beautiful, damning spike of light from the Baekdu. It was a candle flame in a hurricane. They had to make the whole world see it before the storm blew it out. The news of the Caithur's new ultimatum broke like a tsunami. One day, and a city would burn as a warning. Panic turned to sheer, undiluted terror. Governments went into total lockdown. The United Earth Defense Council, which had been meandering toward surrender, was now thrown into chaos. The argument shifted from if to surrender to when to surrender to save lives. The name of the probe, Baekdu, flashed across news crawlers, a mystery to the public. Who had provoked the aliens? In the KADD lab, the move was one of grim urgency. They had the proof, but it was trapped in their servers. A secret that could save the world or doom them as reckless provocateurs. We have to go to the council, Minji said, her eyes on the live feed of the emergency session. Faces from every nation flickered on the screen, shouting, pleading, some crying. They will never listen to us, Dae Hyun said. He looked exhausted. We are junior officers and scientists. They will say our data is a trick, a desperate fantasy. They will hand over the planet to avoid the burning of a single city. Then we don't go to all of them, a new voice said. They turned. Council Chairwoman Lee stood in the doorway of the lab. She was a small woman in a severe gray suit, her hair perfectly styled, but her eyes held the same red-rimmed exhaustion as theirs. 2 stern security personnel flanked her. The vice chairman for security told me of your unsanctioned project. He wished to have you arrested. I wished to see the data first. No one moved. Chairwoman Lee walked past them to Sumi's console. Show me. Sumi, too tired for deference, brought up the evidence. The perfect formation analysis. The identical energy signatures. A ghostly carrier wave. She played the telescope recording, the shimmering distortion of a Kappa 7 cluster. Finally, she showed the graph from the Baekdu probe. The spike of starlight at the exact moment of the pulse. The Baekdu saw stars where the enemy claimed there were warships. Sumi said, her voice flat. They are a projection. A bluff. There may be only one real ship out there. Chairwoman Lai watched the distortion clip 3 times in silence. The angry alien face from the new ultimatum played on a muted screen nearby. She looked from one to the other. A bluff, she repeated softly. They are trying to conquer us with a lie. And they are angry we saw through it, Minji added. They have a real weapon. They destroyed the probe. They can probably destroy a city. But they cannot conquer or occupy Earth with a single ship. They need our surrender. They need us to open the door for them. Chairwoman Lee turned from the screens, her gaze sweeping over the tired, hopeful faces in the room. If I take this to the full council, it will be debated for the remaining 20 hours we have. The fear is too great. Logic loses to the image of 12,000 ships. She made a decision, her posture straightening. I will not take it to the council. I will take it to the KTHAR. A stunned silence filled the lab. You? You will surrender? Jin asked, confused. No, Chairwoman Lee said, a hard light in her eyes. I will negotiate. And in negotiation, you reveal your opponent's hand. She looked at Dae-hyun. Can you package this data? Everything. The proof. In a format their systems can likely decode? We can broadcast it on the same carrier frequency, Jin said, understanding dawning. We send it right back at them. Exactly, Chairwoman Lee said. We do not submit. We send them a message. A simple one. She looked at Minji. What would you say, Officer Minji, to someone who has threatened your home with a painted picture of a gun? Minji thought for a second. I would tell them I'm not afraid of paint. A faint, grim smile touched Chairwoman Lee's lips. We will be more diplomatic. But only slightly. The next hour was a whirlwind. Dae-hyun and Jin worked to compile the data packet, a visual and scientific essay exposing the illusion. Su-mi prepared the transmission protocols. Chairwoman Lee retreated to a secure communications chamber, preparing to address not Earth, but the void. Min-ji watched the countdown clock. 18 hours until the K-Thar's demonstration. On the streets, the terror was palpable. You could feel it through the walls. Finally, they were ready. The chairwoman sat before a camera, but this broadcast was not for human networks. It was a tight beam transmission aimed at the heart of the projected fleet, at the estimated location of the hidden mothership. Open the channel, she said. A light on the console turned green. Chairwoman Lee took a deep breath. She did not look afraid. She looked like a headmistress about to discipline a spoiled child. Kai-Thar Collective. This is Chairwoman Lee of the United Earth Defense Council. We have received your ultimatum. We have also received your presentation. She paused, letting the words hang in the digital space between stars. We are a curious species. When presented with a magnificent threat, we study it. We have studied yours. She gave a small, deliberate nod to someone off-camera in the lab. Jin pressed a key. We are sending you our findings now. On their monitor, they saw the data packet terabytes of information stream out into the dark. The proof of the projection. The evidence of their own lie. Chairwoman Lee waited a full minute, as if allowing the K-Thar to skim the file. Her expression was calm, utterly unyielding. Your technology is indeed advanced. The scale of the illusion is impressive. But an illusion it is. We see you. The words were simple, quiet. They held no anger, no bluster. They were merely a statement of fact. We do not submit to shadows. We do not surrender to fear. You have one real weapon. We have one real planet, and the truth. The negotiation is over. You will leave our space. She leaned forward slightly, her eyes piercing the lens. If you fire a single shot at our world, we will not aim for your projection. Every weapon we have, primitive as you call them, will be aimed at the source. At you, we will show you how a cornered animal fights. You will not get our culture for your archive. You will get a war you cannot win with a painting. The choice is yours. She gave another small nod. End transmission. The light went red. The channel closed. For a long moment, no one in the lab moved or breathed. They had just called the universe's biggest bluff with nothing but a pair of twos. Then, the main tactical screen flickered. The beautiful, terrifying sphere of 12,000 red icons dissolved. It didn't happen slowly. It simply vanished, like a screen being switched off. In its place, hanging in the space near the moon, was a single large vessel. It was shaped like a jagged, asymmetrical rock, bristling with strange antennae and one massive forward-mounted cannon. Beside it, like 6 ugly ducklings, were smaller escort ships. That was all. The real Kethar fleet. A collective gasp went up from the main command center above them, audible even through the floor, but the relief was short-lived. The single, real mothership turned. Its main cannon, the one that had vaporized the Baekdu, began to glow with a malevolent purple light. It was not pointing at a random city. Its targeting sensors, as seen on the tactical display, were painting a single, unmistakable location. Sol. The Kethar commander's final. Screeching reply came through on every channel, filled with humiliated fury. You reject glory? You will receive oblivion. The gnat's nest dies first. The bluff was over. The real fight, against a real and angry enemy, had just begun. And it was starting with them. The silence after the Kethar threat was absolute. On the main screen, the single, ugly mothership hung in the void, its cannon glowing brighter with each passing second. The targeting lock on Sol was a steady, pulsing red line on the tactical display. In the lab, the reality was a physical weight. They had exposed the lie, and now the liar was going to burn their home down out of spite. They're making it personal, Dae Hyan said, his voice hollow. They're targeting the source of their humiliation. They are desperate, Chairwoman Lai said, her face pale but composed on the Kun screen from the secure chamber. They have lost the narrative. Now they must prove their power is real, even if their numbers were not. All global defenses are yours to command. Use them. The order was staggering. It meant the handful of orbital defense platforms, the experimental plasma railguns in Siberia and Alaska, the few armed ships Earth had their control, was route to the KAD lab. To them, Minji felt a bolt of terror, then a surge of focus so sharp it cut everything else away. This was no longer about proof. It was about physics. An energy cannon was charging. They had to stop it. The cannon is their only real weapon of that scale, Sumi said, pulling up the energy readings. It must be fed by the same system that powered the projection. The projector array. It has to be on that ship, probably those large antennae structures. If we can overload it, we use their own signal against them, Jin finished, his hands already flying. But we need more power. A lot more. The Baekdu's little pulse just made a flicker. We need a scream. Tae-1, the retired pilot, spoke up from a corner. The defense satellites. The Mark 7 platforms. They have high-gain communication arrays. We could turn them into speakers. Aim them all at that ship. Broadcast the resonance pulse amplified. It will take all their power, Dae Hyan said, checking the schematics. They'll be dead in space afterwards. One shot. We only need one shot, Minji said. Sumi, plot the targeting solution. Jin, build the amplified pulse. Dae Hyan, Tae-1, link the satellites. I'll coordinate with the other ground bases. We hit them with everything else we have at the same time. Make them look at the punches so they don't see the needle. A global alert went out. It was not a plea. It was a simple directive. Every terrestrial and orbital weapon system was to target the Kethar mothership and its escorts. Fire on command. The world, still reeling from the vanishing armada, now watched the single angry ship preparing to fire. The order was met with a stunned, unified response. On the tactical screen, dozens of weak, green icons humanity's defenses lit up around the globe. It was a pitiful display compared to the false armada, but it was real. Cannon at 90% charge. Sumai called out. Satellites linked. Pulse is ready. Jin yelled. Ground batteries report ready. Minji confirmed, her headset buzzing with voices from across the planet. The purple glow from the alien cannon was a small, terrible sun growing in the sky over Seoul. People were fleeing, or hiding, or simply staring upward. Fire all conventional weapons. Minji commanded. Space lit up. Sluggish missiles streaked up from hidden silos. Bright lances of laser fire cut up from ground installations. Railgun slugs, glowing white-hot, sped on unerring trajectories. The 6 Cathar escort ships moved, intercepting most of the fire with shimmering shields. They were distractions. The mothership's shield flared as a few impacts connected, but it held strong. The main cannon's charge reached 100%. Now! Minji screamed. Jin pressed the key. 12 orbital defense satellites, designed to talk to each other across vast distances, turned their powerful transmitters into a unified weapon. They focused on the complex array of antennae and projectors on the Cathar mothership. They did not broadcast a weapon's fire. They broadcast Jin's pulse, the 4.7-second heartbeat of the projection. System amplified 1,000,000 times. It was a sound no human could hear. A shriek of perfect, destructive resonance. On the screen, the result was not an explosion. The mothership's powerful shields did not fail. Instead, the delicate, complex projector array that had woven the grand illusion overloaded. It shattered. A chain reaction of violent energy feedback raced through the ship's systems. The malevolent purple glow of the main cannon flickered, then died completely. Secondary explosions rippled along the ship's hull. The vessel went dark. Tumbling slowly, dead in space, the 6 escort ships, their shields flickering under the continued human assault, stopped firing. They hung motionless for a long moment. Then, as one, they turned. They moved to the crippled mothership, not to defend it, but to latch onto it with grappling beams. A new faint signal came through. It was not broadcast globally. It was a tight, narrowband transmission to KAD only. The face that appeared was the Cathar commander, but the fury was gone. It looked pale, defeated. The voice was a broken whisper, filtered through damaged systems. The artifact is silent. The great deception is broken. The alien's large eyes seemed to look right through the screen. You did not fight the Armada. You fought the idea of it. This is a new thing. The image flickered. We are withdrawing. The lesson is learned. We will tell others. Of the humans who see. The transmission ended. On the tactical screen, the 6 escorts, hauling their dead mothership, began to move. They accelerated slowly, then faster, heading away from Earth, away from the moon, into the deep black. In minutes, they were gone. The silence in the KADD command center was profound. Then, a single cheer erupted from the main floor above. It was picked up, a wave of disbelieving joy and relief that crashed through the building, then the city, then the world. Sirens that had wailed in fear now sang in celebration. Not in the lab. There was no cheering. They sat, stunned, the adrenaline draining away to leave a deep, trembling exhaustion. Tae-won put his head in his hands. Sumi let out a long, shuddering breath. Jin simply stared at the empty space where the ship had been. Tae-hyun walked to the small window. The first light of dawn was breaking over Seoul. The city was still there. He looked at Minji. She was still at her station, watching the sensor logs. The proof was everywhere. The false armada. The single ship. The retreat. She saved it all. Not for the history books, but so she would never forget the feeling. Chairwoman Lei's face reappeared on their screen. She looked older, but her eyes were clear. You did not just save a city, she said quietly. You saved our future. You taught us that in the face of the monstrous lie, the only weapon that matters is a clear eye and the courage to say, I see you. The council will want to speak to you. To thank you. Minji shook her head slowly. The thanks is not necessary. We just looked. And that, Chairwoman Lee said with a small, genuine smile, is everything. Later, as the sun fully rose, Minji walked out onto a small observation balcony. The air was cold and clean. People were in the streets below, embracing, crying, looking up at a sky that was once again their own. Taehyun joined her, handing her a fresh cup of coffee. What are you thinking? She took the cup, its warmth a comfort. She looked up, past the blue, into the deep star-flecked black that was no longer an empty canvas for threats, but a place of mystery once more. I'm thinking, she said, that now they know we're looking. She sipped her coffee. And I hope they remember what we saw.